So we're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome, everybody. I'm Andrew Scott. I'm the chair of the Portland Home School Board. Do I need this?
No, you don't. Only if you want to.
Is it Coach Online Harris just talking about it?
Harry's got it all figured out. Sorry, we're just working through logistics of having a meeting in this space. So I'm Andrew Scott. I'm the chair of the Portland Home School Board. I'm just going to kick off tonight's meeting, and then I'm going to turn it over to Chair Lowry. Thank you, everybody, for being here. As I mentioned earlier, if you came from work like I did, there's pizza, there's some beverages, some salad, etc. So feel free to grab some food as we go forward. So tonight's work session is an opportunity to meet with community members to discuss local school foundations. The format tonight is designed to be constructive and engaging and allow for community members to participate both in person and virtually. And I'm hoping the folks virtually can hear us as well. And I'm going to hand off tonight's meeting to our Policy Committee Chair, Director Aileen Lowry, who's going to walk us through the structure for tonight's meeting. Can folks hear us okay, or would you prefer that we use the mic? Mic always helps. Thank you.
Can they hear
Need to turn it on or am I good? Already on, great, thank you, Terry. I just want to thank Terry and Kara and Roseanne who made this possible for us to meet in this space tonight. I don't know if y'all know, but the boardroom has been remodeled because we realized that the ramps in the boardroom weren't actually ADA compliant, they were 2 feet. And so the boardroom has gone through a little bit of a remodel. We've taken on a row so that we can be more accessible to the community, and we're still sort of finishing all that up, and we thought this would also be a better space for the meeting than the more formal setting of the boardroom. So, well, I appreciate especially the three of them that made this happen, and Kara always feeds us well, so appreciate all of her work. At our last policy committee meeting, as you know, we've been talking about the foundation policy for like forever now. A request was made to do a community listening session, and Gary was like super hot on that and was like, yes, let's run with this. And so I was like, how do we make this happen? And so we've made this happen, and we appreciate you all being here. The idea is that we're stronger together. And if we come together from a solutions-based place, all of us want the best for our kids, and if we can recognize that, maybe together we can find a path forward that does that. Just a quick review of tonight's agenda. We're going to quickly go through introductions. So just like your name, maybe your school community. And then we're going to talk about meeting norms, which Gary's going to lead us through. And then we're going to move on to an activity to get feedback from the 4 questions. And we'll go over those 4 questions. And there's sticky notes and pen on the back of the wall. We are going to start with introductions, I believe. So I'm Bailey Lowry, I'm on the PBS board. What we're gonna do is we're just gonna pass the mic super awkwardly and do those introductions. I'm gonna start here with Amy because she took a drink at perfect timing.
I'm Director Amy Constam, I serve on the board.
Gary Hollins on the board. Okay.
Andrew Scott back there as well. Hi, I'm Alice, she, her pronouns, and I'm a parent and pregnant.
Megan Costa is she, her pronouns, and I'm also a parent regular. Rosie Ware, also she, her, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Elementary. And I'm in Patrice.
Celeste Grover, she, her, also a parent at Scott.
Susan Larson, she, her, parent at Rosalie Heights.
I'm Kara Massey, I'm a parent of students at Alameda and Beaumont. I'm Jessica Lottie, and I'm she, her pronouns, and my kids are at Grant, Beaumont, and Alameda.
Megan Burmans, she, her, and Laurelhurst. Smith Lane, she, her, Rosalie Heights.
Maya Von Gelman, parent at Vernon, and use she, her pronouns.
Isabel Johnson, she, her, and I have a son at Glencoe.
Suzanne Clark, she, her, parent of Roosevelt Business Student.
Beth Gelman, she, her, I'm a parent of Cleveland and Hosford students.
Jonathan Today, PPS graduate and parent of 2 PPS grants.
Cruz, PTA, parents of.
Aaron Cruz, student at Harrington.
I'm Zoe Moskowitz. I'm a parent of Angelica. Goes. Hey, Laura.
Julia Burnett Briggs, she, her, board member, PPS grad, and a parent of 3. Out. Katie Chapman, teacher at Hosford, Sullivan, and Franklin, vice principal at Madison, and the principal in high school, and also a parent. Casey Wallace, I'm a parent of a kid at Mount and she.
My name is Dan Osborne. I am a parent of 2 children at Richmond Elementary and here.
Hi, I'm Marianne Walker, and I'm a graduate of Franklin High School and parent for PPS students that will graduate and current resident of Vernon.
Hi there, I'm Andrea Hoffeld. I'm a former Alameda parent and future grandparent.
Hi, I'm Effie Greathouse, and my kids are at Hayhurst Elementary.
My name is Ryan Phillips. I'm a parent of 2 children at Ralph Elementary and also the treasurer of the
It's Catherine Day. I'm a parent of a child at Alameda Elementary. My pronouns are she, her.
I'm Peter Sachs, Keehan, parent of our child.
My name is Leah Johnson. I am a parent of a student at Vernon Elementary School. I graduated from PPS and I have worked at Chapman, Ainsworth, Woodlawn, and Vernon.
Hi, my name is Will Musser. I'm a parent and a student at Beaumont and Alameda, and my pronouns are he and him.
Hi, my name is Sabrina Hollingsworth, she, her, and I'm a parent of 2 at Alameda. Hi, I'm Donna Ingram. I have 3 kids at Ricky Elementary.
Hi, I'm Emily Sullivan, she, her. I have a student at Cleveland, a student at Sullivan, and a student at Dunlop.
Hi, I'm Laura Stevens, and she, her pronouns, and we have a kid at Buckman.
Hi, my name is Michelle DePass. I serve on the board. I use she, her pronouns.
I'm Roseanne Powell, the board manager. I use she, her pronouns, and also a student lead.
Hi everyone, Jonathan Garcia, Chief of Staff here at PPS.
Hi, I'm Robin Crone, Director of Strategic Partnerships for PPS. I have 2 students at Career.
I'm Ethan Kramer. I'm the assistant principal at Beaumont Middle School and a proud graduate of both schools.
So we have some meeting norms we're going to go through. And unfortunately, the presentation isn't launching right now. Gary, do you have that slide on your email?
Do we want the people on Zoom to introduce themselves?
Oh, that's a great idea. Yes, thank you. This is always awkward because your screen doesn't look like my screen. But let's start with Jenny D, because you're on the top left on my screen. And then Jenny, after you introduce yourself, could you invite someone else to introduce themselves?
Hello, everyone. Jenny Duvander, parent and PTA at Salem Elementary. Good to see you. You want to go next?
Hi, everybody. My name is Uma Court. I'm the PTA co-president at Richmond Elementary School. Thank you.
And did you invite someone to speak next?
Sorry,
That's okay.
Kelly Anderson?
Yeah. Hi, hi everybody else. Kelly Anderson. I have a kiddo at Richmond, and then we also have a graduate of Cleveland as well. I will pick Sarah Shively. Am I right?
Hi, I'm Sarah Shively, like Lively, and I represent Forest Park Elementary. I'm the president of Friends of Forest Park Elementary, and I use she, her pronouns. Could I ask that if you're on on the online call part of this, could you please keep yourself muted unless you're speaking because it's causing some audio problems? Also, we're not able to make any comments or chat or anything, so I don't know if that's the way it's set up or if we can enable
We're gonna
that.
have you guys use the Jamboard. So there's a Jamboard that you'll be able to use to make comments later on during the meeting.
Okay.
Sarah, who would you like to invite to speak next?
Yes, Lana?
Hi, I'm Lana Keene, she, her, and I'm the foundation president at Llewellyn Elementary in Southeast Portland. And I will choose Kelly Albrecht, Richmond, I believe.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'm Kelly Albrecht, co-president of the Richmond PTA. I have a first grader, he, him pronouns. Happy to be here. I wish I could be there in person. Getting dinner ready. The audio is a little echoey and hard to hear over there. I don't know if there's much we can do about it, but we'll listen in as best we can. Thank you. Who we got? Jay Watt. I invite you to introduce.
Dan? Jay Watt, are you there? I have a sneaking suspicion that might be Jan Watt from Cleveland High School, but you want to confirm or deny? All right, we'll go to Stephen. Have you introduced yourself yet, Stephen Bonder?
Yeah, hi, Steve Bunder. I'm on the board of the Friends of Forest Park Foundation / school gardener. I've got 2 kids there. He, him. Thanks.
All right, how about Christina? Christina, we can't hear you, see you. No, we can't hear you. Christina Markelis, parent of a Cleveland student, right? Or if your kids all graduated now. Yeah, parent of a Cleveland student. All right, Robert, have you gone yet?
No, I'm Bob Liebman, he, him pronouns, and am here on behalf of the Southwest Neighborhood Association Schools Committee.
Okay, Allison, have you gone yet? All right, anybody else? Okay, go, Allison.
Yeah, sorry, trying to unmute. Yeah, my name is Allison. She, her pronouns. My sons go to Jefferson and Beverly Cleary.
All right, Rebecca, have you introduced yourself yet?
No, not yet. I'm Rebecca Dollar. I have a son at Franklin High School. Thank you.
Audrey? All right, is there anyone else online who hasn't introduced themselves yet?
Yes. Go ahead.
No, you please go ahead.
No, sorry, I'm on my phone, so I apologize, but I'm
Let's
Emily
do
Hinkle.
Richard first and then E. Hinkle. Let's do Richard first and then E. Hinkle.
Oh, great.
My name is Richard Raisley. I'm a student at Glencoe Elementary and also Mount Tabor Middle, and I'm the incoming chair of the Glencoe Foundation.
Great, and I'm Emily Hinkle, parent of 2 kids at Laurelhurst K-8, former PTA board member.
Anybody else need to introduce themselves? Anybody new in the room?
Audrey Ginnick is a parent of, at Alameda.
Audrey Ginnick is a parent at Alameda. Great. Okay, do we have that slide up with the meeting norms? Great. And I'm going to turn this over to Director Hollins to walk us through our meeting norms.
All right. I'd like everybody to do this around. I just really did that so I can get a round of applause coming up. I appreciate that. Appreciate that. Can everybody hear me online? Okay. Okay. So I'm not gonna do the whole mic thing. If everybody can hear me. Oh, got it. Okay. Okay. Here we go. So I just want to get a raise of hands for everyone who's here for kids.
What?
We're here for our kids.
Oh,
yeah.
kids.
All right. Everybody raise their hand who's here for figuring out solutions. Oh, this is great. Everybody who's here everybody here who's in favor of collaboration to figure out these solutions for our kids. All right, unanimous. All right, so this is some of the meeting norms we're going to have today, and this is what we're going to need from you guys. We're going to need everyone to be engaged and to stay engaged. We're going to have activities that we're hoping you guys stay engaged for and participate in. We're going to experience discomfort. This is a hot topic. Everybody's passionate about it. So there is going to be a little discomfort. But that discomfort is not disrespect. That discomfort is not yelling, it's not name calling, it's not throwing accusations out. I'm the type of person if that happens, I'm gonna just actually leave. Because we're here for solutions. That's it. We don't want to rehash the same arguments that we've been having. This has been going on for some years now. So now it's time to get to solution oriented people here. Ask everybody to speak their truth responsibly. My truth is going to be different from anybody else's truth, but I have to be responsible for how I speak my truth. I don't want to try to offend people in speaking my truth. I want to be respectful in speaking my truth, and I want to make sure that I can be heard. Because if I'm disrespectful, if I am throwing accusations out because of my truth, it probably won't be received well. So I want to make sure that we're looking to that. Listen to understand. This is one thing that I had to take in with this whole process too, is really listening to understand. For me, when I first started, I thought, oh, this is gonna be simple. This is just somebody just make a decision to do something. But when I really start listening to everyone of their thoughts and their the reasons behind why they do what they do, I really had to try to understand what everybody was saying. And so I hope everybody else really just kind of listen to understand what we're going to do. Now, this is one that they put on here. I don't necessarily agree with this last one, anticipate and accept the lack of closure. Today. I think we can come up with a solution today, but I'm gonna lean into that a little bit.
But it won't be passed by the board today.
Right, it won't be passed by the board today. But we want to make sure that, we are not expecting, for us to pass something today, even with our board members here. But I am 100% looking to come up with some kind of solution today. All right. Now, one of the things I wanted to say before we get into the activity that I'm going to pass off to Director Lowry is that one of the things that I did is outside of listening to everyone, I went onto both websites. And I really was trying to look at the commonalities that we had. Right? When I looked at the commonalities that we had, I was like, we're not really far off. The mechanism of how we get there is a little different, right? One of the things I looked at was, we all agree that schools are underfunded, right? Everyone agrees with that. The other thing that I found that was common was, we all care about our kids, right? We all care about the education and experience that our kids is getting. Another thing is that we all want to do something about that, right? We all want to take action, which I think is awesome that everybody wants to do something or has done something and actually take action in providing for their kids. Like, a lot of people talk, not too many people walk the walk, and you guys are doing that. So I want to thank you guys for that. The last thing I'll say is that one of the commonalities is that we all will do whatever it takes to make sure our kids are successful. And that's from volunteering in the lunch counters, at the school, after school, whether it's, I've been to all kind of dances that I'm chaperone at, to organizing fundraisers, to give them money. Like, we all are willing to do whatever it takes to make our kids successful. And you guys really can give yourself a round of applause for that, because I think that needs to be celebrated. So you can clap for that. Clap for that. All right, so we have some activities that Director Lowry is going to walk through, and we'll go from there.
So we were talking about how to best structure this, and I think we all know that a lot has been said. Some of it not the kindest, some of it by board members, some of it by me. And so we wanted to start from a place where we could really hear each other. where we let go of some of the defensiveness, we let go of maybe some of the woundedness that's happened, and started from this place like Gary got us warmed up with, we're all here for children, we're all here because we think we can do better, we're all here because we know our schools are underfunded. And so we wanted to start from a place where we could really listen for that understanding. And the way to do that, we thought today was through the Post-it note activity. I know many of you have done this before, but often what happens when we're talking and then we know we're going to respond, I do this. I get so busy thinking of my response, my like witty thing I'm going to say, that I don't listen for understanding. And so we thought the Post-it notes would give us all time to sort of process and think and reflect and put down in writing some of what we're thinking about, and then that would give the chance for other people, sort of without judgment, without defensiveness, without offensiveness. I'm just going to ask people on Zoom to make sure you're muted. To then look and see what other people are thinking and feeling and saying. And we've got 4 questions. The first is, what is the problem we are trying to solve? And this was generated by something very wise, one of the few wise things that Andrew has said. To be a joke, I think Andrew is very wise. But about this matter, he said, you know, it's kind of like we're having 2 different conversations. We're having one conversation about systemic equity, and we're having another conversation about like practical in-school funding, and those we're kind of talking past each other sometimes. We're not always listening and understanding because we're coming from 2 different angles. So I think we really think about what is the problem we're trying to solve and how do we each individually articulate that. I know some people online are like, why? We all know what the problem is. Why are we? We're starting there because I think it's really important to help us ground our conversation. The next is, what suggestions do you have? And this is what new suggestions, but maybe there's an old suggestion that you think is just like the fire and you want to put it up there. But so if you have an idea that you think, why have we talked about this, or maybe we should go back to this, put that up there. Then what are you concerned about? What are your fears in this process? What are your fears for our kids? What are you worried about for your community? I think we come to this because we're passionate and we are concerned. But we're also really hopeful. I mean, we're not here just because we have worries. We're here because we see a better future. We see something really great that can be. So we wanted to capture that. And again, ground ourselves both in those things that we see as like landmines or danger spots, but also those things that we're building towards. And maybe doing that will help us get out of some of the narrative we've been in and be able to find that solution today that Director Mullins is hoping we get to. So there are Post-it notes. There are 6 little tubs of Post-it notes along the back wall. There's a table there, a table right there, a table right there, and a table there. And so you can go grab Post-it notes and a pen, take some time. We'll leave the questions up here so you can go back to your seat if you want, reflect, and then put your Post-it notes up. Then we're gonna take some time to do a gallery walk, kind of read and reflect, and then we'll have a discussion about what's kind of bubbled up. Now, for those of you online, you're gonna have a virtual link. It's there, I think that's the whiteboard link. And you can use the sticky note icon on the left side of your screen to write down the feedback. The sticky note icon is the one that is directly below the letter T, according to my notes. Yeah.
They will be sent to the whiteboard.
Oh, they'll be sent to the whiteboard. Oh, it'll appear. There will be magic of technology that happens. Kara will take care of it. But you'll be able to use the sticky notes on that whiteboard to put your virtual sticky notes on there. And those will also be collected. Is there a way for us to display that so they can be part of our gallery walk?
So we can take down the questions, put the questions on the
on each whiteboard.
Large sticky paper.
Okay, so the questions are on the large sticky paper, so we can have the whiteboard up here. Great. And the questions are on the whiteboard as well. So great, we'll have all of that. And if you have, so again, the sticky note is under the letter T on the whiteboard. Oh, here's the whiteboard, so we can walk through this, the magic of technology. And the sticky note. Okay, so you'll see there's the T, and directly below it is the little square. Click on that, and you can put up a sticky note and put it on each of those 4 areas. Okay, any questions? Yeah.
Yeah, so I noticed that you didn't do any sort of level setting in terms of like why we're here and what we're here to talk about. Is that intentional so that you're trying to see like what, like for us to
Yeah, so we're here about the foundations, right, in general. But yes, we want you all to identify what the problem is, because I think there are different understandings of what the problem is, and that part of the problem of finding a solution is we're coming at it from different places. But maybe I'm wrong, and maybe everybody will write down the exact same thing on those Post-it notes, and we'll say, okay, now we know what the problem is, we can all work together to solve it. Yeah?
Kind of similar, but really appreciated the introductions of everyone. Can you also help us understand, is the full board here?
Everyone's here but Herman, and it's very common for pastors to take the week after Easter off because it's a little tiring for us. I took spring break off instead, so Herman's taking some much needed rest this week. Director Green, yeah. Yeah. Any other questions? I was just calling everybody else by their first name today because it's a work session, but yeah, thanks, Michelle. Want to be respectful. Yes. Director B, sorry. That's a great question. I don't know, do we have access to a link for the current foundation policy? I think instead of getting into the nuts and bolts.
Because I think there are some people here who know that it's for fundraising and how we do things, but
we'll get that up.
aren't educated on what it actually works.
Yeah, so Roseanne will put that in board book for this meeting, so you can go to the PBS website, look at the board meeting, and get the information there for the documents. Yes?
Are board members also gonna articulate what they think the problem is?
Yeah, board members are not gonna, we're gonna participate as, we've had lots of chances to speak about this. The board has, so we're gonna invite, but this is for us to listen to the community at this time. Yeah. Anything else? Yeah, Julia. Director Grimm.
So, question, just if we're going to participate, there was about a year and a half ago, community engagement that was done by the district's community engagement team that talked about kind of what the perceptions of what the problem was. And that was outreach to parents who wouldn't normally come to
something like this.
So is that
that's informing these conversations as well. I think this is a community listening session, which is why we're not having the board participate, so we can listen to the community in this space.
So I guess that's going to be the framing of what the problem is how.
I think it's part of the framing along with what we heard in that community engagement as well. I think we're taking all of the things we've heard over the last several years with that. I'm gonna go ahead and have, as it feels like we're getting into the weeds of some of the process things, I'm gonna go and have us get started because I think as we do this, that stuff will bubble up. So invite you to get sticky notes and pens, respond to the 4 questions, and then we'll do the gallery walk and some afterwards discussion.
And can we get questions in the Jamboard as well?
I just was trying to. Does anyone need a pen? I've got extra. I've got a pen, I've got extra sticky notes. Okay. But this I've got
Yes.
Hey there. Thanks so much. Appreciate it. You're welcome. Have a great day. All right.
Still. Oh my God. Yes. Yes.
Yes, yes.
Are they all one thing? This.
What's that? No.
I also have neighbors that they don't understand. Yeah. Step down. Yeah. It's done. Yeah, it's really great. So it's on there. West. Some schools just don't want to be involved. What?
Some of the foundations are saying not neutral.
So I just watched. Yeah. But then I need a couple more things. So
I want to make sure people have had a chance to look through, if you've already sent your answers, kind of look at what other folks have done. If you're still working on your answers, you have about 5 more minutes to get those out.
I was never.
Rosie was just talking about. It's true. I noticed. But I still have people like that. Hard to read. That's
How many kids?
No. What do you want? It is 9,000 people. Alfred, that was that's worth the fine. The only thing you can have down here is chocolate bars. You're hungry.
Yes, I want steakhouse. Okay. There's some people unmuted online, just so you know.
Mandy, can you mute yourself, Mandy?
Just a reminder to also look at the screen up front, and if it's too hard for you to see, there's a zoomed in version on Kara's computer as well. And I saw Kelly Anderson, you had your hand raised. Did you have a question, or is that just left up earlier?
I have a request. The audio is really challenging for those of us online. So one thing that I think would really help is if whoever was speaking faced the camera. That seems to be our best chance at hearing folks. And then if people who are side chatting or chatting could, if the speaker could share what they said, that would help all of us to hear it.
Hey, how are you?
In about 2 minutes, we'll come back to have a group discussion, so make sure you've looked at the post-it notes. About 2 minutes, we'll come back to have a group discussion. Well, at least he's a coach, trying to get in there. Yes. Be closer. You're very intentional. Okay, I'm gonna ask folks to come back, and sorry to our online folks that we can't get to see all of the other poster notes. Make a collection of those and try those out. And actually, maybe Kara put the screen back up so we can see folks just, they may be wanting to participate as well. I'm going to ask that folks having side conversations cease your side conversations so folks online can hear us. Yep, everybody back. You can keep looking if you want to, but I'm just asking that side conversations stop because we've gotten some feedback from our online friends that it's really hard for them to hear in this space. So what did you notice? What did you notice?
I noticed that there is still no consensus on what the problem is that is trying to be solved tonight, and I think tonight or in the future. And I think that's a problem to be addressed on its own, is that we're not all solving the problem.
Okay, so notice that there's a different problems listed. What else did you notice? I noticed that there's an assumption that everybody here knows what the previous conversations in the history around this topic is. Absolutely, I'm not second to point it out. What else did you notice?
I know some share a lot of the same concerns in terms of, and some of the concerns are similar to some of the problems. Class sizes are too big, enrollment that's continuing to decline, lack of stable funding, and being stuck in a cycle where we cannot get to a solution because of some of the underlying problems.
So that's really interesting. We're trying to solve different problems, but the things we're concerned about are the same.
I just noticed a few comments where the understanding of how our schools are staffed is highly misunderstood. But there's a recent change in that, and I think everyone needs an indication on how it's actually done.
I think that's one of the interesting things throughout this conversation. There's been a lot of how do we learn more? How do we know more? People are saying inaccurate things. And so this who holds the knowledge, who decides what the truth is, who decides what the information is, and there are different versions of that. And so that has been one of the pieces of this conversation. What else did you notice?
I'd like to respond to that, because I feel like, is this a good format? Like, is this a situation where we could discuss some of those things, where there seems to be sort of different understandings of things that should have, like, there should be an answer to something like how are our schools staffed and that kind of thing.
I don't know that we have the PBS staff here to do that tonight, because that wasn't the intention, or it was rather, instead of listening to PBS, it was listening to the community. But that's a really important thing, is how are our schools staffed is something the community doesn't understand that we need to share with us. What else did you notice?
I'm noticing that there's the ongoing challenge of getting more voices into these conversations. This led to the formation of those roundtables last June, and we continue to say we need more voices, and those voices, in this euphemism, are still not at the table. And coming from a school where we don't have a foundation, it's been very challenging to try and create greater awareness and understanding of how these things work. So I'm noticing that there's a lack of equitable access to information about this, and that knowledge of how these systems work and knowledge of how private fundraising works is very tied to proximity to resources and proximity to foundations.
English language, that there are a lot of barriers, and I think we see that system-wide, not just with this issue around foundations, but with lots of other issues around PBS, and how do we remove barriers for access. What else did folks notice? I noticed that there's a lot more Post-its on the concerned rather than the hopeful, but there are a number on the hopeful. How about my online folks? Anybody want to unmute and tell us what maybe you noticed from those online sticky notes that you all have?
My hands are covered in olive oil. I'm surprised at there's less consensus than I thought, and that is informative for me. And yeah, that's all.
Yeah, let me check in if there's anybody else online, and then I'll come to you. Anyone else online? Notice anything you'd like to share?
Yeah, I'm also concerned, there's a limited number of people participating in the conversation, and, it seems like everybody's of a particular demographic. I'm, white myself, and I see a lot of, white people in the room especially, and I'm worried that maybe this doesn't represent fully the community as well as it could, and so I think someone else had a similar comment about just getting people aware and involved and engaged in the issue. And so I think one thing that might service more people is just the general idea that maybe we can do better work to get the average parent involved in what's happening here. And maybe there's some things that we as a group, whatever side we're on, could do to just increase the level of awareness and engagement. And I'll stop there.
Yeah, thank you.
And I just have one, I think, quick comment, and that's just, it seems like some of what's lacking is a real understanding of what's happening in different schools. And so I think people are very aware because it's their children and they know what's happening in their schools, but you don't always know what's happening in other schools. And I think that piece is missing in some of the discussions around foundations.
Yeah, that's one of the things we talked about is how do we begin to collaborate across schools in a way that isn't colonizing, right?
This is hard to say, but I would say with like love and respect that I think some of the comments are divided between there's a lot of comments about kind of like a Monday morning problem, like what are we going to do when my kid or our kids are without this particular resource, and then there's the large amount of comments that are more talking about a systems level change. And so those are two very different categories of problem. I think that probably people who are dealing with a Monday morning problem are also concerned about systems level change, and people who are concerned about systems level change are in fact also dealing with schools that have a lot of Monday morning problems. But we're just focused on different things, like more, because the problem is solvable on an individual level for some, but less not solvable on an individual level for others. So, but I think it's all those concerns are valid.
For me, I wasn't even aware of this foundation until I saw the board notification last week. So I sent an email and I was asking, what is this foundation? So I did a little bit more research. I looked and saw who was on the board. I looked at the 990, and I was like, is this a conflict of interest? And then the other question I had, I looked at the board, who's actually on the board, and I saw that there's a MAPS testing representative that is on the board. So I was like, is that a conflict of interest too? Because I know that MAPS has a huge contract with the district. So that's my lens. Just I'm learning about this foundation, so I'm pretty sure you guys are well aware of this foundation and advocating for other things. But for me, this is the learning curve. But then I also noticed that the funding distribution. I was like, well, is my school represented? And I saw it and I didn't see my school. So I was confused. I was like, well, man, what schools are being funded? And I did some more research and I saw the list and I was like, is this inequitable? So this is all just in a 1 day of research of looking at a website. So, yeah.
And what Mr. Cruz is talking about is the Fund for PPS board, right? Yeah. So the Fund for PPS is so the Fund for PPS and the foundations are different. We're talking about local school foundations at this meeting. And so the Fund for, so we're talking about local school foundations at this meeting. The Fund for PPS is the body that holds those funds, and yes, there is a district foundation that can also be directly given to. Jonathan, would you like to speak to any of that, or?
Sure.
Not kind of.
It's not the point, but I think that it's illustrative of not everybody having the same knowledge base.
Yeah.
And so I want to appreciate you, community member, because it is a learning curve. Nobody was born out of their mother's womb knowing the system. And so that you're going to the education level, I think is excellent. Appreciate it.
Sure. Good evening.
It's not the topic.
Jonathan Garcia, Chief of Staff here at PPS, and also serve as the president of the fund for PPS. So history, most of you know this, 94, the Portland Public Schools Foundation was established. Years later, it became All Hands Raise. When it became All Hands Raise, it was meant to, so the Portland Public Schools Foundation was started to raise money for the school district. Over the years, it expanded to be able to Multnomah County endeavor, so really focusing on the East County schools. Then the local school foundation program or initiative became a program of All Hands Raise. So I am working on a number of other items. Local School Foundation was a program that they continued to run until 2019 when we established the Fund for PPS, an independent nonprofit organization that serves as a fundraising vehicle for independent nonprofit vehicle for fundraising. And in that conversation with All Hands Raised, given that we wanted to amplify the investments that were coming in from parents with philanthropic dollars from businesses and foundations, we wanted to unite all of these efforts into one to really think about the scale and impact of private investments and philanthropic dollars on the experiences of our schools. That work?
Can you explain how the private foundations then funnel through the Fund for PPS in order to be given to provide grants to local schools, local school foundations?
When you mean private foundations?
Local school foundations, LSFs.
So operationally, you all parents raise money through local school foundations.
Not all. Schools and foundations.
Okay, I understand not everybody gives money, yes. So some parents donate to local school foundations. All schools have access to a local school foundation in order to become, yes there is. In order to become a local school foundation, all you have to have is 2 parent volunteers that can serve as chair and treasurer. That is the rule to become a local school foundation. So every school is entitled to one. And so in many ways, parents, if you go on our fund for PPS and give $5 to a school that may not have a foundation, that money still goes to that school.
So is it an entity or?
It is an independent entity.
No.
The fund?
From
Two different grants. Is it under one entity or are you talking about 2 private entities?
So the Fund for PPS is one entity and that houses the local school foundation's dollars. And at the end of the year, we transfer that money to PPS in the way that the donors intended, which was, in this case, local school foundations are meant to fund staffing.
You guys need one of those like YouTube videos that, you know, the ones where they have the drawings and the arrows and the where things go.
Gotcha. Question?
So, to clarify, still trying to catch up. 3 years in, trying to understand. I thought I heard there's 2.
Are there 2 501c3s? There's a fund for PPS and there's a foundation that was started in the 90s.
That became All Hands Raised.
That became All Hands Raised, but then in 2019, PPS left All Hands Raised.
No, we took the local school foundation program from All Hands Raised and embedded it into the Fund for PPS. So
Its own 501c3.
There's only one 501c3 for private support of PPS.
Except for the
that manages
school
the
foundations.
Foundations program.
Correct.
Okay. Which are other 501c3s. But there are 2.
Oh, so I think what you're.
The original thing that we
What you're alluding to, there are 7 independent foundations, part of the local school foundations. These are Friends of Lincoln, Cleveland Foundation, to name a few. These are all independent with their own board of directors. They have to submit their own 990s, their own audit every year, et cetera, et cetera. So they operate independently versus the other.
I don't know if this is the right time to bring this up, but I think all of us could really benefit from understanding how the 2018 racial equity and social justice lens ties to how the district is funded and foundation dollars.
Great question. I don't know how it's tied. So we're just going to
The
just,
tighter aligned with.
we have to get back to you on that answer.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions? Yes. We got 2 more questions.
It's more of a comment. So I just want to point out that all of these questions folks have, I think really point out that like in the future when we do these things, there needs to be maybe some level setting so that everybody's coming to the table with the same understanding and facts so that folks can have more informed opinions. Because I think that would encourage getting more voices at the table if we provided that. So thanks.
All right, I agree with that to some extent. They've been doing this for 6 years. So for me, I've only been on the board for 2 years. I don't think it should take 6 years to get something together, right? And we can keep having meetings after meetings, but then nothing gets done and only people suffer from is our kids. I don't suffer, you don't suffer, board don't suffer, our kids suffer. So I understand the whole level setting piece, but it's been 6 years. It's time to move on. It's time to turn the corner.
Wait, but it's.
That's just my opinion. I mean, I'm not asking for opinions on my opinion. I'm just giving my opinion.
But no, it's not an opinion on your opinion, because that's a totally valid opinion.
Gotcha.
That's what I was gonna say.
Okay.
But what I was gonna say is that, like someone mentioned earlier, if you don't have a foundation, you don't understand that foundations exist and how they exist and how they benefit your school
And that's what
community.
we try to solve today.
Right.
Let me move to that. I got you. I got you. Well, hold on. Let's move to a solution piece, right? Because everybody raised their hand on wanting to find a solution today, right? I seen everybody's hand go up, right? All right, so let's try to get to that. All right, so we have multiple solutions, and I'm sorry I don't have this on the PowerPoint, but we have multiple solutions that has been presented at the policy committees. You know, there was a 50% equity piece, there was get rid of the foundation piece altogether, you know, and then there was the variations of the same thing. Right? And so one of the suggestions, and I looked, and we even got a couple suggestions in this last couple days. One of the things that I wanted to try to look at is how do we figure it out, right? It's been 6 years, there's a whole lot of data on both sides, there is reasons on both sides. What kind of solution can we come up with? One of the things that I heard was, and this is on both sides, you know, we want to provide additional resources to fund our schools. I heard that on both sides. We want to make sure all school communities are funded. We want to be able to have lower class sizes. This is stuff I've seen on both sides, or heard from both sides. You know, both sides agree that there's inadequate staffing at schools, you know, and that's one of the reasons why we do what we do. And we know why it happened, because of the Measure 5 and all those other tax things that come. So we know all this stuff. And this is I'm only repeating the stuff I've seen on both websites as far as the reform and saving the foundation pieces. One of the big things that stuck out to me was the inadequacy of any solution we come to, whether it's doing a 50% piece or whether it's taking it out all together. Both sides were like, that's not enough, right? Both sides agree that something needs to happen. And so that's where my head went into, like, how do we figure out something? You know, when I hear, you know, a lot of comments, well, we can't take it away without backfilling it with something else. I agree 100%. One of the ways that I think we can backfill it with almost $8.1 million, what this would do would be, it would be able to allow every school automatically to be allocated $100,000 a year, regardless if you raise funds or not. No, you'll be eligible to receive up to $100K a year. schools who raise more than, or schools who raise more than the $100,000 that they can, then their allotment will go back into the pot and be distributed amongst the other schools. Does that sound like okay so far?
Are the schools?
Oh, no, I just asked them, does that sound good? $8.1 million, that don't sound good to nobody? Or does it?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
Not enough.
I take questions at the end. I promise. But if that don't sound good, then I can just drop the mic and we can be gone and we can just continue this all over. All right. The benefits of this is, and I'm gonna tell you as soon as I get done, the benefit of this is it gives each school the ability to to have additional FTE to better support our kids. It also possibly could lower class sizes. Another one is it could keep donor involvement at schools that have donor engagement already. So it doesn't take away from that, right? This will allow us to focus on district-wide foundation funding initiatives as a whole. Our kids will get to see us support them, time's up, to support them together, right? You know, and when we talk about underrepresented groups, you know, I've talked to a lot of folks as well, and I think what this will automatically get them at the table. This will automatically seat them at the table to looking at this issue, especially those that don't even know foundations exist. All right, and I think we can do this together. All right, so how many people with me so far? I need a show of hands. So, nobody? Oh, no.
Where's,
Is there a slide that you're presenting? I don't think we can see it online.
I hear you. Here we go. Okay. So we have a, hold on, go back. So we have a tax levy that we use for teachers. We have the ability to raise additional funds through that levy to get the additional $8.1 million that we're talking about to be able to fund this. That's how we get there. That's how we get to that, is we raise that through the local tax that we already do for our teachers. We already do that now. All we're doing is going to raise it to be able to cover that additional 8.1, to get us $8.1 million or more. And what we need is we need you guys to help us advocate for the state, because the state tax caps us on how much we can go up or down. If we go over a certain amount, we have to give it to other districts. So we're going to need you guys to, well, hold on, go back. So, does that sound okay for anybody?
Sounds great.
Okay, hold on. Any questions? Go ahead.
I think that sounds, like a great idea, but I think 8.1 is too low. I mean, I think if we're gonna raise the funds, can we raise more?
And that's the minimum. Let me get some more questions. We're not talking about
And then there are a couple of questions on that too.
Oh, sorry.
Isabel from going down to Salem and advocating for higher state school.
One of the questions or concerns that I saw on the board was around, what problem we're trying to solve is around equity. So I'm curious how that addresses that issue. And I noticed it wasn't brought up when we talked about solutioning or common concerns, but it is a.
Well, the equity piece that every school will get. Every school will be eligible for $100,000.
But equal is not equitable.
Well, we're not talking about equitable. We're talking about equalization, and you use equitable ways to get to equalization in some instances. And so when we're talking about that, that's kind of where I took that from, because we have an equity model solution already for our schools. So we have that already with the district. This is to get us to to a equalization speeds, doing it using equitable methods.
So I'm just wondering, under your proposed plan, do foundations still exist and still raise funds in addition to receiving the $100,000?
So the way that it would be set up is, for instance, as an example, if a school raises $125,000, well, their allotment of that $100,000 will go into the pot and get spread amongst all the other schools, if they're able to do that. Some schools are able to do that. If a school raised $60,000, well, then they'll be able to get an allotment of $40,000 to bring them up to that $100,000. If the school raised zero, because they can't, then they're eligible for the whole $100,000.
If the school raises 400,000,
Then they raise 400,000.
they keep on,
They keep theirs, yeah, they can keep theirs. Yeah, they can keep theirs. And that's what I'm saying. That's something that we can discuss. I can't make a decision, but that's something we can discuss.
So then nothing goes into the fund for PBS for grants from that?
Well, they're already getting the funds from $100,000.
Yeah, but it's not coming from the private.
No.
I think is the question, would a third still go out for the parent funds?
Your proposal is that there would not be a third going out for the
Right.
parent funds.
Because the reason why it wouldn't go out, so say for instance, if a school already, so you got say 5 schools or 10
For the
schools.
online folks, I missed.
So I gotta get to them too. So if you have, take 10 schools that raise 100,000, well, that their 100,000 will go into allotment for all the other schools, but then will get spread out. So you have $1 million going to all the other schools individually on top of their original 100,000. Right.
Has this been modeled out?
Not yet. This is just hold on, let me make sure I'm clear. This is just a proposal. It hasn't been vetted. We have to do a whole lot of work around it first. I just wanted to try to bring it to you guys, first. Hold on, get it back here. Oh, and we need to get to the Richard.
Yes, I just want to make sure I'm understanding what you're saying properly. You're saying that you're setting a target of, in this case, $100,000 per school. And is that per school, or is that intended to be pegged per student? I just want to be clear on that point first. Rather, broken down by student, rather, is what I mean. Like, is it intended to be a normalized by student, or is it just a flat amount per school?
Flat amount per school.
So it's one
Okay.
FTE, basically.
Okay, and so they would be essentially guaranteed that amount in the school, and say if they raise some portion of that amount, they would be granted the amount to make up the difference up to that 100,000. However, if a school raised, say, 200,000, that additional 100,000 would, in this case, stay with the school, or would that be distributed back to the fund to be distributed equally?
Yeah, it would be the fund sent back and it would be distributed among the other schools individually. 100%. Let me get one more question.
So I don't get the 100,000 from the levy. It stays in the pot for everyone else to share, and everything over 100,000 stays at my school. And are there any restrictions on that money raised over 100,000?
Doing this right here proposal, not right now. That's something that we can discuss. Hold on.
That stays in the general pot for everyone else to share. And then anything over that, no, stays at the school, stays in the school.
That's the proposal now. If there is anything over 100,000 that you guys bring to stay out.
Can you clarify what's tax dollars and what's donated dollars?
Levy is tax
The
dollars.
levy is 8.1 million.
That's where we would get that 8.1 or more.
Raised donated dollars.
And they can, and schools
Levy
can still.
supplements to 100,000.
Correct. Okay, all right. Hello, Kelly, you had a question online?
Yes, board member, thank you. Could you just please just take a moment just to get us all on the same page on what the racial equity, social justice lens is that the district is portioning the district dollars with, just so we understand that?
Like, say that one more time, I can bring it in.
Sorry, could you just briefly explain what the racial equity and social justice lens does for district funding? So we understand that?
The equitable staffing model.
You talk about the equity staffing model that the district?
Yes,
does
sir.
already?
Yes.
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 Well, that's a different conversation. That's this
It's pretty
conversation.
relevant to this conversation right here.
Well, that's different, because that's something that the district does on its own versus what the foundation stuff does. So that's a different conversation.
Yeah, but that's the motivation for foundations to want to work harder to raise money, is because they feel that they're not getting the money that the schools that need more support are getting.
Yeah, but again, that was one of the arguments, but that's not the discussion either. Any other questions?
Our listening session.
I think like the other commenter, I'm just confused, and if we could just take a step back, because we're talking about $8 million, and I'm confused. I think you mean the local option levy, which is tax money that would provide, we hope, but this isn't a given, $8 million more to the PPS budget, right? So if that passes, and we don't know that it will, it's not like we have this, so say it does, this 8 million or even more, hopefully, because we all agree that 8 million is not enough. So there's this $8 million of tax money, and it sounds like, Gary, you're leading us in a discussion of how we will distribute this tax money among PPS. I'm not sure if that's how taxes get distributed, but regardless, I'm just confused. If PPS got $8 million more than they would have otherwise through this tax money, why wouldn't it just go into PPS's budget and be distributed based on PPS's equitable staffing formula? Why is it a separate pot of money that falls under different rules? That's my question.
Great question, and that's the stuff that we have to vet out. Right, we have to vet all that stuff out. So we'll say this is just a proposal, but that's some of those questions that would be vetted out as we work through the whole process. I love the input though, so.
I feel like I heard two different things, so I just want to clarify. In what you described, every school, there's sort of a baseline $100,000 that schools would get. And if they, so my question is, schools that are raising money, if they raise over $100,000, they're not eligible for the $100,000 from this pool of money. And then what happens to the money after that first $100,000? Because I feel like I heard that it stays at the school entirely. And then I also feel like I heard that over $100,000 goes back into the pot that's distributed to other schools.
No.
So the proposal is that if they raise over $100,000, they get to keep that at their schools, because their allotment that they would get will go back into the pot to be distributed among them.
Their $100,000 allotment would go back into the pot.
Correct.
Okay.
Hold on, let me get here and then.
Well, I'm not the only local option living here. I used to be a reporter in Bend, so I know probably too much about this. If I'm understanding, and I want to take like 20 steps back. If I'm understanding your proposal and the fact that the state legislature would have to partially approve this and this would go on a ballot, there's no way this would go on this November's ballot. So this would be a November 2024 ballot potentially. So we're going to have to be passed by either a majority or 2/3 in the district. No?
No.
This doesn't go on a ballot. Okay. Okay, so if it goes, best case is this November, then that wouldn't be reflected in property tax collections until October of 2024. So we've got a lag there. I think this is an interesting proposal that should be fleshed out and explored. It also doesn't start bringing in money tomorrow or this year. And that's the point I wanted to highlight.
So, great point. And so this year, for 2020, wait, 23, yeah, 23, 24, right? We're already allotting 100,000 per school already through ESSA dollars that we one-time funding. So we'll have that whole year with that funding model already in existence. The ESSA dollars. Yeah. Question right here.
Well, I guess, I just want to second, which you said that I don't understand why this is a separate pot of money that would be not a contingent on the model, the equity models that the district uses otherwise, but instead would be equally distributed. And I guess I also just feel like it doesn't address some of the problems, like the fact, one thing that I saw was that parent fundraising can get in the way of transformational change. And no, I mean, I don't think that there should be no fundraising at all. But I think that, I guess I would just like to talk about other ideas that people have, specifically for problem solving. I think that we should, I think, obviously I think that we should limit the amount of money that local school foundations can raise for individual schools for staffing. That's where I stand. But I think we could do that over a number of years. And as we work towards district level fundraising, that could be really inspiring, that could be really fully community involved, that could, I just keep throwing, Music Fest PPS, what are we doing all together? That's not just about, that's about grandparents, that's about the former teachers that live on my block, really do more visionary kind of work.
I agree that 100%.
I think we could use the extra money that comes out going into the parent fund where it's distributed and becomes irrelevant, basically. We could use that money to explore and create this program of, more district level funding.
So I agree 100% that, getting people together to buy into a district fundraising model, I think this leads us a long runway to do that. I think this gives us what the option there is about 5 years. So that gives us a 5-year runway to get to that model. I don't think you get to that model tomorrow. I don't think you get to that model in 23, 24. But this will allow us to get to that model because now you're having funding for schools that's not getting anything right now. Right. Whether we stop the fundraising, the parent fundraising model today, those schools are still getting zero. Right. And so I think this is a great runway to one, it engages those schools that don't have a foundation to say, hey, you know what, this is what we're getting, and it draws engagement, right? And it draws hopefully a buzz, to get people involved. And hey, this is what we're getting. How can we get more? But I do think this provides that long runway to get to that district-wide fundraising model. And that goes into the third part of what we're going to need. We'll need everyone to get together to work with our fund for PPS, right, to figure out how do we and what can we do to get to that overall district fundraising model. There's no way to limit what we can do. If we can do this, even in the 5 years, and raise another $9 million through a district fundraising model, well, now our schools get $200,000 or $300,000. So there's no way limits what we can do, and no way stops the progress we can make.
What happens? Sorry.
Ricky, Kelly, you have a question?
Nope, sorry.
Yes, I have a question. Before giving every school the same amount of money, why don't we ask each school what they need and see how we can work around that? Because every school needs different amount of money, and that's kind of what I'm wondering. Thank you.
All right, thank you. We'll look into that as well.
Hi, thanks. I think we like your love the idea. I hope that there's no word appetite for that. I guess we'll find out. One of the things that we also wanted to really talk about tonight is that we do support a district-wide foundation and really strong and well-funded on PPS. And one of the solutions that we put forth would be that the 33% split that foundations now put toward the parent fund grants would go to funding the fund for PBS and bridging the gap, giving them the staffing that they need so they can go out and fundraise for staffing and for teachers and educational assistants, and also fundraise for the programs that they currently have. One thing that I'm greatly worried about, as a fundraiser myself, is if we push to the centralized funding model, there has to be a lot of money to pay for it. You need 20% of your budget to pay for staffing operations. So if you want to raise 8 million, you do that. It's very expensive. So I think that it's critical that we consider putting that foundation grant in as a way to create seed funding for the fund for PBS so that they have a stability in their funding base and they can grow most likely quicker than what's talking about. They're also going to need a lot of staff to raise $8 million.
Gotcha. Thank you. And I got that email too about that. So, gotcha. Any other questions online real quick?
Yeah, just a comment, I think, in general about the framing of the conversation. I think, there's this comment, we've heard it over, we all agree there's a problem. I also want to bring the perspective to the forefront that some folks may not agree necessarily that there's a problem, or at least we're talking about the problem at the wrong resolution, right? I am of the perspective myself that I would be happy with more money staying in the local school. I think the third split, sending it centrally, and the discussion around that is actually a major distraction from the larger issue, which is just a failure of state leadership to adequately fund education. And I think we are now essentially playing that game and, focusing on each other and kind of rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic, so to speak, when really the issue is state funding. I think you have to understand in whatever solution that you come up with that we're dealing with people care about their local communities, their local school. They want money raised for their families, and their children to kind of stay as close to that school as possible. They trust their teachers, they trust their principals. And I think that is just a reality that we have to work with. And I think, no matter which side we're on, we should be focused on the larger goal, which is the total inadequate nature of state funding of education. I'm of a position where I've already enrolled my middle schooler in private school, right? I'm probably going to be doing the same for my elementary school student when they get to that age if there isn't a significant change in Portland Public. And I think it's very unfortunate.
All right. Question here. We got 2 more questions.
I don't have a question, but I'll put a formal question. So
Not the question.
why are we trying, as a group of people who know about foundations, trying to solve a problem that is not inclusive of the majority of the PBS community, since most PBS schools do not have active foundations? I feel very uncomfortable putting forth an idea that does not put equity at the forefront, and I'm also uncomfortable with the fact that we're prioritizing a plan to increase private fundraising to save our schools, a plan that would disincentivize parents in wealthy communities that are predominantly white to continue that behavior instead of focus on what the prior commenters said is the real problem and is causing that parent, and over 50% of the parents in my capture community, Roosevelt High School, to leave PBS.
Thank you. One last question.
Yeah, well, I was just going to say, what happens if voters don't pass the levy?
Great question, but that actually would be a scary question. I can't remember how many teachers that. It's like 600 teachers, so if it doesn't pass 800, so it doesn't have to lose 800 teachers, and it's a whole different conversation. So.
We're going to go ahead and close out. So we're going to try to honor people's time at this meeting has been tough. I think we're all walking away frustrated and unsatisfied. Is that fair to say? Who feels frustrated and unsatisfied? Yeah, who feels like they've been heard?
Heard or
heard? Heard. Who feels like they've been hurt tonight? So I think the thing to remember is that this is This is us as a board trying to do our best for our next step. We did roundtable, someone mentioned that, trying to listen to folks who don't have foundations, who aren't normally captured. We've had meetings, we've had different groups bring proposals. Gary mentioned there's websites, there's lots and lots of opinions. I was once in a meeting at a church, talking about church conflict, and it said you have to get everyone to agree that the wall is blue. And I don't think we in this room agree the wall is blue. I think when we talk about the concerns we have, we all agree the wall is blue. But when we talk about other things, we don't. Even talking about how is staffing, or when you said something about, well, the reason foundations do this is because this, but I don't know if that's true, right? Like that's
that's what they've said. They've said that they're trying to make up for the difference.
So that's something that said. So I think part of the intention tonight was to get us to let go of some of those things, to try to really listen to what other people were saying, and maybe through that find a new insight, find a new way to hear, because this has been something that's hard. If those of you who watched the board work session on this in December, you saw 7 different opinions from the board about what foundations are, how we should proceed, what should go next. And so, Director Hollins was really passionate at the last policy committee meeting is we've got to go back to our community and listen. And he had an idea based on his listening that he wanted to flow past you and get your input. So what's going to happen next is we are going to take and capture all the things you've shared. We're going to share those out with the policy committee, with the rest of the board. We'll make those public. I'm going to work with Kara so she's not typing away all night long. Maybe there'll be images rather than like on a spreadsheet. We'll capture the stuff you all shared online as well. And then it goes back to the policy committee, right? For the policy committee to continue to say, what have we heard from our community, and how do we, as a board, continue to respond to try to write the best policy that takes into consideration both those Monday morning problems and the greater systemic issues. And that's our responsibility. And so we're going to continue coming to you with ideas. We're going to continue coming and say, what are you worrying about? What are you thinking about? Tell us your best ideas, and then we'll mull those over. And again, we're not a board of 7 people who are all the same. We are very different, and that's one of our strengths, actually. It can be a pain when we disagree and we're arguing, but we all on the board are here because we care about kids and we care about PPS, and we have different ideas of how to do that best. And so Gary was very brave. He really was like, I want to take a shot. We've tried a bunch of things. Let's try something different. And really push for this to happen quickly so we could try to get somewhere as quickly as possible. I'm going to let other board members respond now to maybe reflect on what they've heard or anything they'd like to say. I see your hands. We're not going to take hands anymore tonight, but we are going to let board members kind of respond now.
I'm going to be quick. I hope I don't do that. I want to get really specific about one thing on the levy. Gary said it, but I want to make sure the point is not missed. We are capped in the amount of money we can raise in the levy by the state. Actually, I'm going to take one more step back. I'm really hopeful. No, I'm not hopeful. I want us to continue advocating at the state for more education funding. That has been said by multiple people on all sides of this, that we're inadequately funded. This governor and legislature have proposed $9.9 billion. I want to be really clear, that is going to be cuts in PPS. It's going to be cuts in every district. Okay, that is not, oh, maybe you could find the money here. No, at $9.9 billion, we will be cutting teachers. We will be increasing class sizes in schools. So please get down and advocate. I wish I could say that I was optimistic. I'm not. In a state this progressive that talks these values, we do not have state leadership on education. It is incredibly frustrating to me. It's something I'm pushing really hard on, but it is, we are way below the quality education funding model, which is why we started looking at these other ideas. I also want to make sure everyone in this room knows, I think you do, but in case you don't, board members are not allowed to talk to one another outside of meetings like this. So I kind of about detailed ideas. So I sort of had an inkling of where Gary was going. This is the first time I've heard in detail what he said. And this is as a board, the only time we can discuss as an entire board these ideas. So I know I heard other people say why aren't you guys all on the same page? That's part of it. We can only get on the same page when we're in a work session, a policy committee, or a board meeting. But all that said is that I also had a levy idea, so we're thinking along the same lines. And we actually have legislation in front of the legislature right now to lift the cap on Portland Public Schools, because the cap is on Portland Public Schools, and it would essentially allow us to raise our levy. There are a lot of questions about that. I don't know if voters will be receptive. The economic environment is very different than it has been in the past. How much we raise it is an open question. One of the ideas for increasing the levy is to deal with some of these foundation-related issues of this fundraising that Gary put out there. I actually want to see enough money that we can lower class sizes to something lower than 30, maybe in all of our K-3 classrooms. And I would like to see additional funding on top of that that could go into our education, our equity funding model, so that we can continue to provide, you know, additional tutoring and reading specialists and all the other things we need in our schools, and do that through our normal thing. I would love to raise the levy by $40 or $50 million. Whether polling bears that out as something that's possible, I don't know. Whether we can get the legislature to lift this cap, I don't know. But if we can, I want to come back and have that conversation with the community this summer and this fall about potentially raising that, which for me, this would be one single piece. So anyway, I'm going to stop talking.
Is there internal staff work on the levy and all of that? Like,
At this point, the staff will be waiting for the board to be giving
so
direction.
you have not given the direction yet. Okay, that was my question. Okay.
Amy, do you want to-
Can we also ask them if we need 10.5 and they're suggesting 9.9, but we're sending a $3.9 billion kicker back? Is there some way for all of us to advocate, kick the kicker back?
Yes. So the answer to that is yes, we require a constitutional amendment. And a constitutional amendment requires a vote of the people, which wouldn't be able to occur until at least this November, will most likely occur in November 2024. So yes, and that's been advocated since I've been in Oregon.
I know, I just never hear it, not that you don't say it and I don't say it at every meeting we go to, but I mean, the broader, everyone here, just, the money's there.
We could get to 10.5 and just, I mean, that would be a huge win in this session.
What, may I ask Andrew, is it? It's not-
You're a board member, you can speak.
Expecting you to have all answers. So I am concerned about any, talk about local option levy, when we know that, you know, raising taxes has disparate impacts on different communities, including renters that don't pay property taxes because their rent goes up. And so I just want to be really careful that we understand what maybe some of the unintended impacts of that are. I would be really interested in advocating at the state level for a quality education model, but I think it's higher than 10.5. I believe it's like 11. It's 11.9, so we're 2 billion under. And I just also want to appreciate the conversation here tonight. I think I learned something. I've photographed all of the boards, and I don't know that I'll be able to read them later on, but I'll try. I appreciate everybody kind of listening and sitting with your different values. And this is a tough one. It is a tough conversation. We have a tough thing. I also question, like, what's the question zero that we threw out was, what are we actually trying to solve? And I also hope and pray that we employ and align whatever outcome or whatever we end up with our racial equity values. What we say we value as a community is really important to me, you know, as a Black community member from Portland. So yeah, I just appreciate people staying with us during this conversation.
Thanks, I just really, my name is Amy Constantine, I serve on the board. I appreciate the conversation tonight. I'm all for all of us coming together and advocating for a healthier state school fund. I was in Salem last week, fighting a good fight. We had about 15 PPS students who spent the entire day today down in Salem, and they're always our most compelling advocates. So we are working on that every day. I've been down to Salem every single session since my oldest son was in kindergarten. He's now a college graduate. So I'm all in for any of that. The other thing that I have in common with Gary here is that it's really important for me that we keep an abundance mindset. At the very beginning of this conversation months ago, there was a lower all boats proposal floated that, you know, would have put a cap on external support for our public schools. And the last thing I think we should ever do is impede people from supporting our public schools. It's on us to make sure that we distribute those resources equitably, but we want to all be doing everything we can to get our community to support our public schools in every way. So that's really important to me. And I don't feel like we agreed on the problem that we're trying to solve tonight. I think that's really hard, but I do think that we made a little bit of a dent in a common understanding of the problem, because
based on the, hundreds of emails that we have received, most of the community members that I have heard from don't have an understanding of how our schools are funded. And they don't have an understanding of our equity staffing model, and they have a perception that foundation funds are providing all these benefits in these wealthier schools that other schools don't have. And that did used to be the case, and that was deeply inequitable. So I think we've still got a lot of room to make improvements for more equitable distribution, but I am heartened that I think maybe we're making headway on a common, more accurate understanding of the problem.
Can I ask a quick question?
Hang on, I'm gonna see if Director Brim Edwards has something to say. Director Brim Edwards, do you have anything you wanted to add?
Great, thanks everybody for coming tonight. Because I've been around public schools for 30 years. I believe in the power of the innovative thinking of parents. Because over 30 years I've seen this a lot of problems, so I'm glad everybody came here with an open mind and ideas for how we can move ahead together. Couple things. I would say that, just to echo, I appreciate Director Holland and Constam, myself, and Irony, and lots of parents in this room who went down to advocate, so we need to keep doing that, so we don't have to actually raise more money. And I think the idea of doing something with the levy needs a fair amount of work. That doesn't mean it's not going to work, but I think this concept of figuring out how to increase the pie, this is the first year in a long time that principals, teachers, and parents had a sense that they had some discretionary dollars to make investments in their schools for things that were specific to their schools. And that's because we had this extra money this year that got distributed out, this $8 million, kind of similar to what the amount that Director Hollins was talking about. So I think we're going to see this next coming year what could happen if we had those discretionary dollars that where principals, staff, and parent community come together and figure out what their highest need, and they have the discretionary resources to do that. So I think it's going to be a great opportunity for us to look at that model and how that could actually help us solve the bigger issue, the questions that have been raised over time about indirect fundraising. So I'm always, as a parent, got to be optimistic. So I'm always optimistic that together we can figure something out that's equitable and that all of our schools get what they need to serve and support our students.
I know there's a lot more to say. We are gonna go ahead and wrap up our meeting tonight. We will continue to have this conversation. I'm gonna say as policy chair that I don't see a path forward to a changed policy at the end of this school year. And the reason there's a deadline at the end of the school year is that the fiscal year starts July 1. And it's unethical for people to raise money and then the rules to change. And so if people donate for something, we don't wanna then have that change what they're donating towards. So this will be something that continues to be worked on. I'm going off the board, so is Director Constam. We're not running again. Please vote in the school board election. It is in May 16th, is that right? And then some of you may think about down the road, would you like to be on the board? You're passionate, you care, you're interested, you're curious. Those are all things we need on the school board. So I was a parent like you. I was a foundation president. I was a spokesperson for Portland Friends of Music, got very involved, and wound up here and spent 4 years serving to the best of my ability on the school board. So we need people like you to consider running in the future. That's the only thing that makes democracy and makes our school system work. We don't always agree as a board, but I've learned so much from my colleagues and their wisdom and perspective, and it challenges me to be a better person every day. So thank you all for your time tonight. Remember how we agreed we would not have closure and we'd sit in the discomfort at the beginning of the meeting? Well, we delivered on our promises tonight. So thank you. We will continue listening. Have a good night, everybody.
Thank you.